than 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. I guess that's there too. Oh yeah, it's on loop. I guess. All right. Great. Anyways, I have to do that every time, or I won't know if it's going to work. That's why, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes even after you test it, it doesn't. All right. So we're in Daniel 7. Very exciting chapter with many connections to the Book of Revelation, both in symbolic content and what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, whatever. Symbolic content, and also in the like, it's not just similar symbols. The symbols are actually connected because they speak about the same events. That's what I mean. That's the other thing I was trying to get at. Okay. Verse 1. Let's just read. We only got through the first 8 verses, so let's put everything into context. This is one of those chapters where we'll kind of have to do that. In the first year of King Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart was given unto it. I say unto there every time. I don't know why. I just want to. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment is white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set. The books were opened. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Season and time. Different thing. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, and all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me to know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms. It shall devour the whole earth. And shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall rise. Another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. And it's interesting how we recorded the fall of Babylon before, and then we returned to prophecies that happened while he was still in Babylon. Perhaps because that's when these things were written, because because this is in the Daniel is saying in the 3rd year of Belshazzar this happened, not in the years of Darius or any of the Medes or Persians. So he had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. He wrote that. Oh, well, we covered the first 9 verses, but there was this one. I didn't talk about one how the beast came out of the sea, just like in Revelation. The first beast, at least, he saw a beast rise up out of the sea. And here's a question you might have: like, well, why is the account different? Why is the beast different in Revelation than in Daniel? Did the prophecy change? Well, I would say it's a different prophecy, not of a different future, but a different aspect. For example, like when I talk about, like, you can look at the world from a variety of perspectives, is what I'm saying. It's like, just like the idea of the whole earth can mean in certain contexts, like, hey, in the whole earth, who is greater a king than you, Nebuchadnezzar? It's like, well, there were kings really far away and stuff, but as far as locally, that didn't matter. And we're not talking local in a small way, local in a big way. Now, I do think ultimately that the prophecies blossom, and like I said, there's like a nested effect. Aside from that, there is a sort of nesting also of, small-scale evil looks a lot like large-scale evil, but it's smaller. You know what I mean? So, like, when you have an evil king, he may very well be a lot like Satan. And when prophets write it down, like about the doom of Babylon and things about the king of Babylon in the book of Isaiah, and then, then later on, we see that's not just one man. That's an example of what happens to any man, potentially, or what can happen to a man in that position. Just like Satan, you were in the midst of the stones of fire. I mean, this is talking about the Prince of Tyre, but this is the concept I'm talking about. What is true of the Prince of Tyre, what corrupted him, works like everywhere. It works everywhere. It works in Satan, it works in you, it works in me. So it always goes all the way to the top. Just like, of course, we're talking about Christ here. I mean, it's quite obvious with the prophecy. But, the little people, the saints of the Most High, also model the behavior of Christ. We're supposed to. We need to, because that also scales. And if God is going to, it says, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord that he may lift you up. And the point is, he intends to lift us up. So we have to be ready to be scaled up. And if evil was in us, it would scale up just like Satan. Just like Nebuchadnezzar before the Lord revealed the truth to him and humbled him. Belshazzar, right to the end. Didn't listen, Because sometimes you don't get that, God will turn me into a beast and let me run around naked in the woods for a couple of years and that'll straighten me out. I mean, no one ever thinks that, but there's a certain attitude of like, if God wanted to get my attention, he will. And here's the thing, because God has gotten my attention many times. He does that to me. But I don't think it's wise of me to ever think that I should take that for granted. Right? Anyways. So, the beast comes out of the sea. So what I'm saying is, like, the fact that it comes out of the sea, it's not the same vision, obviously, as in Revelation. There are similarities, and those points of congruency can help us understand the full picture better. We got to understand that each picture is partial, where Revelation is the most complete picture and the most probably understandable symbolics. I feel like you learn a lot about symbolism by comparing Revelation and the New Testament with the Old Testament. That's how I derive my understanding of prophecy, because that's where you see people who I trust know how it works using it. When you like quoting it and then quoting Old Testament prophecy in the New Testament. Some of it is quite, when you see how sketchy some of it is. It's like, as far as like meaning, and sketchy not in the sense of bad, but just like it's like a thumbnail sketch. It's just like this. When you say a nation is like a lion with eagle's wings, that says something, but it doesn't help you really point that nation out. Like looking back in history, I could choose dozens of nations from dozens of periods of history that might be like this. The fact that they come up out of the sea, well, I should mention, I guess, that in Revelation, the sea is peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And I would think the same thing here. From among the sea of nations and peoples arise these powers. And like I said, I described them as great powers. So I didn't mention the sea last time. The wings were plucked. It was lifted up from the earth. Again, it's a lion with wings. The wings are plucked off, and the lion is made to stand like a man. Less of a chimera and more of a man. And my interpretation of it may not have been I liked it, but it's like, like I said, I looked at like the eagle-lion combo as some sort of aspirational thing, but also it could be like some sort of cursed thing, I don't know. Well, that, in fact, the way I talked about it might be, but we're not going to linger on that. I think there was something, a man's heart was given to it, It's an interesting thing, because the heart of man is like it's very specific. It's the heart of man. It is deceitful above all things, all that stuff, but it is a man's heart. And what does that mean? Does it mean the pump that is in your chest? No. When you use heart in this sense, it means, yes, but like not in the thinking part of your body, but but in the feeling part of a man's heart, his feeling. Where the things we associate with matters of the heart, all that. That's why I was saying when they use that, they mean that. Just like when they talk about whose God is their belly, or you talk about thinking with your gut. Gut is instinct. We use it, and it has nothing to do with anatomy. It has to do with analogy, or it has to do with the way we divide up human thought and aspects of our nature into these different parts, because we see them as distinct. We know that emotional things are triggered by thoughts, but they're not in themselves the same as like thinking. You know what I mean? And so hearts is not just, I don't want to just limit it to emotion, but it's like that kind of heart issue. It is feeling. Intellectual feeling, I would say, not physical feeling. At least that's a thumbnail of that, for me. And behold, another beast, second, the bear raised up one side. I thought that might be, raised up on one side might indicate some sort of limp. You know what I mean? Like it has the limp, like it's been wounded. Like I said, it might be like, I always thought, and he has 3 ribs in his mouth, which is also interesting. Remember how the little horn plucks up 3 horns, right? One of the things I've always wondered about, what if we have an anti-Antichrist, a false Antichrist, that the true Antichrist can point to and say, no, he's the Antichrist. And I know that may be a bit silly. It's like the anti-missile or whatever. It could get that way if you think too hard about it. But in the sense of, when I see the bear, he's limping, he's been wounded, he's got 3 ribs in his mouth, he looks like the beast. He's the bad guy. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. And here's the thing. We can only speculate. And here's the thing. I do speculate on these things. And you shouldn't hold it against me as though I had said something that I thought was doctrine. I mean, just so you understand. So all that has to be taken. Anything I said in these 2 studies, you need to take with the proper amount of, obviously I'll say things that are also categorically the truth and ought to be regarded as dogmatic truth. So just some of the later parts where we have things talking about the his dominion is an everlasting dominion. That's an axiomatic truth. All right, you don't need any further context for it, except who are you talking about, right? So we got past the bear. So the bear with the limp, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's moving that way because on one side it's stronger than the other, like it's uneven. That was another thought I had, like unequally yoked kind of thing. The 3 ribs, totally, like I said, it's 3, like the 3 horns plucked up by the roots. Does this look like a frame up? I'm not the Antichrist. Vladimir Putin is. I don't believe that, but it's just funny. The bear with 3 ribs in his mouth, framed up. Except he's only got 1 rib in his mouth, doesn't he? Or is it 3 provinces? Is it 3 provinces? I don't know. I haven't looked at a map. I don't study that stuff. I don't believe in reading the newspaper with one hand and prophecy with the other, by the way, even though I'm doing it right now. But I'm doing it in a lighthearted way because I don't think you should take people who do such things. When they do it, you should not take that too seriously. We have to see actual things happen. You can say America is this beast and China and the Middle East or whatever is anything. But if if nothing comes from it, then it's nothing. It's not any of those things. We were wrong. And again, I'm saying that because when I'm uttering those things, I'm not uttering it in the prophetic. I don't think I'm uttering it in like the prophetic aspect where I'm saying this. Maybe I am. I don't know. I could unawares be doing that. Just like in the time of Christ, the high priest, who wasn't even a believer, was saying it's necessary that one man should die, that the nation perish not. And he didn't mean those words at all like that. But they were true because it meant that Christ would die for the sins of the nation, that they would be saved and that they could partake of everlasting life, right? So one can prophesy not realizing it, without intending it. And I certainly don't intend it to be, I'm saying we're in the end and all that. But it is fun to speculate. But, I just hate when they're selling these programs and selling these books. And, there are some books I bet the authors need to have out of print because they're so bad with their false prophecy. As far as like just selling people on all this constant ginning them up like it's here, it's here, it's here. Now we are living in a tremendous time. We just lived through one and we're currently living through a crisis. We have war. We have, it's a very dangerous war that has a potential to turn into a wider war. And it's something we should be openly speaking against. They need to cut it out. It's like, no, you need to cut it out. We're going to come for you all, and you're all going to be out of a job. That's what, and the problem is you say that to them, and they'll want to kill us for saying, because that's how it is with the wicked. If you slight them, they slay you. You know, that's how they are. They aren't the type that take it, you know, they don't believe in turn the other cheek. You know, I mean, that's obvious. The culture today is not turn the other cheek. It's he that casts the first stone is the most righteous among us. That's what it is. Cast the first stone and prove yourself righteous. That's what the mentality of we see in the world. I don't want to call it the W word because that word doesn't make sense. I don't want to use a ironic name. It's very unenlightened. It's an unenlightened. It's anti-Christian. I've called it anti-Christian for a long time because it's literally anti-Christianity. It's like, what did Jesus say? Oh, he is without sin cast a stone. No. The sinners will throw all the stones at the non-sinners. I mean, so it's literally the opposite. And the first one that does it is the best. You know, throw a stone and start the war. You know, it's like they're just crazy. Now, they don't say it like that, but you can see the insanity coming out. They're picking up guns and talking about it. That's why we shouldn't. Just avoid them. And keep telling the truth. So, anyways, 3 ribs in the mouth. But the reason it's fun to look at things like Putin and all that and whatever is because as an evil ruler, because he is, right? Because I'm not pro that. I'm not pro that. I'm just pro-life. You know, I want people to live. I think the war is unnecessary. They need to sort things out there diplomatically. Okay, you know, it's like, why are they fighting over this? They can sort it out with voting and things. And people moving around, maybe. Maybe people should just migrate instead of killing everyone in the region and destroying everything and wasting billions of dollars. Oh, but people are going to get rich doing that. And that's more important than making peace. That's why we're doing it. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. They act like they don't want to make peace, our people. We're every bit as evil as Putin, really. They don't understand that. Our leaders are every bit as evil as he is. Every bit as ruthless. They just have more laws governing them. But they're already, you know, think about what they, whatever. I don't want to get too much into that. Anyways, but the thing is, because he is an evil ruler, he models the behavior of evil rulers. And since Russia is the bear nation, I mean, come on, and remains somewhat of a bear. You know, it's a metaphorical bear. It's a problem. It's, you know, but anyways, I think we, you know, the thing is, I may seek peace, but it may never come. You know, so whatever. But that doesn't matter. That's our job. We already know the system is going to make war against the saints and overcome them. It's going to beat us. We're in a losing battle. The point is to go down in a blazing, glorious, flaming glory. You know, like I said, you know what I mean? It's like I will oppose it with every bone in my body. Because it's like that thing is free to kill me. You know, it's like I don't want to die on the side of the road in a pool of my own vomit or whatever. I don't know why that's the metaphor. Is that the picture I draw? At first it was blood, but then I changed it to vomit because I'm like, why am I on the side of the road with a pool of blood? Or I don't want to die in some just way. I don't want to be in a nursing home wasting away. I mean, if I do, I do. That's the end of my life. If I'm 90 in a nursing home, fine. I don't think I'd end up in a nursing home because my family would probably take care of me, but that's beside the point. If I live to be 100 years old, great. I'd love to do that, actually. But also, I recognize that if the final beast arrives, and even a lesser beast, because you understand, these are kings. Kings do kingdoms and kings, right? They say it's sort of interchangeable in my mind, whether you were talking about kingdom or a king. It said kingdoms at some point. Right? But they take different forms. There's different forms of government and types of empires, types of this and that. You know, America is a very different empire from the British Empire, which was a very different empire from the Mongolian Empire, which was a very different empire from the Roman Empire and other empires throughout history. They have some characteristics that are very the same. That's why we're pretty doomed, because we're just printing money and waging a war. That's the death of empires. It's just, unfortunately, the people at the top don't care. They're just too busy running the cash machine to actually look and see that they're steering us into a brick wall. So into the wall we go. You know, it's not. It's remember, your nation can fall and you can do just fine. You know. So do not fear. Let not your heart be troubled. Trouble is here. It may not be that's the thing. It's like, it may not be the end times. You may not get a rapture. Even if it is end times, I'm sorry to say, I don't think you will. How's he going to overcome the saints? Oh, tribulation saints. Yeah, you have to live into the tribulation to be a tribulation saint. Don't expect people to pick up their Bible the day after the rapture and start becoming well-armed Christians. That's not how it works. When this overwhelming power shows up, if you aren't ready for it, you're going to be swept away by it immediately. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it isn't to like get people to, all right, yesterday I was like an unbeliever, and today I found this Left Behind video in my Christian brother's, nightstand with a little letter about what happened, and now I'm going to start the resistance like in those novels and stuff. It's like, that's actually not going to happen. That day will not come except there come a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that is that little horn, that little person. Again, little compared to what, because it's like what's going to actually be Antichrist is a figure of a man. I don't know if it's going to be purely a normal human being, because this is something I've always, for a long time, I like to speculate what the worst case scenario for Antichrist would be. And I think the worst case scenario for Antichrist would be a supernatural being, Satan himself, coming disguised as a human being, looking entirely human, perhaps from the sky, perhaps in an alien craft of some sort, or whatever. That's all extras. The whole part is about the Satan as a man. Okay, that's it. Satan comes as a man and calls himself, it says, I am Jesus, come to return, and here are my holy angels, the locust army. Something like that, I think, is probably would be the most overwhelming. Something like that shows up, and you want to talk about wearing masks at Walmart, that's going to be difficult to talk against? You think it's going to be easy to talk against that? You're going to have even unbelievers are going to be, even people who don't know Christianity are going to be the most vehemently for it. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be most vehemently for it. You will only get reluctance from some very skeptical Christians. You're not going to, a lot of them are, I think actually all those who know their God will not fall away. All of them. Whether you believe in the rapture or not, it doesn't matter, because you'll know that's a phony Jesus. Because you know that when Jesus comes, you're supposed to be changed into a new body. You're like, hey, Jesus, where's my new body? He's like, we'll get that in a minute. When he says that, make sure you don't believe in it. Because it's like, we're supposed to be raised from the dead when he comes. And it's like, he may show you a river of blood that has slain thy people. He may kill a few evildoers. He doesn't care about them. He wants to seduce you. And so I think that just as Jesus, he is despised and rejected of man, a man of anguish and acquainted with grief. And as one whom men hide their faces from, it described him, as being completely normal. Not that he wasn't, like people say, like he's too tall in the shroud. It would be weird. There's some things, distortions, that you can't tell everything necessarily from that cloth as far as exact sizes and all that, from what I understand. And there are people, there's debate over it. People are debating, like there's a range of sizes they come up with looking at that. So, but I think he was not immediately remarkable, Jesus. Like, you wouldn't like seeing him in a crowd. You wouldn't be like that's God. Look at, he's shining. I see his aura or something. You don't pick him out. He's just like any other man. And Satan himself is not going to seem like an alien creature. He's going to seem like small, like one of us. A little horn. It's not some, those big horns. Some of them, men seem larger than life. Like big deals, right? Like, you think about like big shots like Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. They're big shots. They're big horns. They go around committing crimes and they're immune. They're like Nebuchadnezzar, They just do whatever they want. They're immune. They don't have to care about what other people say or think. That's almost godlike. Like as far as, and they regard themselves in such a way. They're the wolves of the world. You know, they know. They know. They know the truth, what's really going on. They know how the world really works. I know this because you know, there's criminal history in my family, somewhat. Not a big criminal history, but, you know, but we raised somewhat, not me, but I know, but my father was raised somewhat with certain bits of advice along the lines of this is how the world really works. Yeah, this is how the world really works. And some people live that way. They don't live according to the dictates of Christ. They don't live according to the dictates of, you know, of their conscience. They say, crush that and screw that, and let's get on with business. Let's lie, cheat, murder, and steal, and get ourselves rich while we're getting good. And that's what they do. All right, they're big shots. But this guy is going to have a mouth speak. He's different. Different. Because, like I said, and you know, this would probably play into Arnold Murray's point about Satan coming in a loving way. My original teacher was Arnold Murray, who I repudiate in many ways, but I'll bring up from time to time certain aspects of that he mentioned, and I'll credit him because it's not something I thought of. But he always thought it was just going to be a big love fest, and I do think there'll be some of that. I think it'll be more of a carrot and stick approach. Yeah, I mean it's going to be harshness, because that would start to get suspicious to people on the board. And here's the thing. Even if it starts to get suspicious to people on the border, like, so to speak, they're like, is this really a God? Is this really Jesus? You know, there are people saying no. It's like, maybe it's, you know, but like, the problem is they'll just go along with it, just like they did with the pandemic. Even though they're questioning the pandemic, they go along with it. Even though they question the vaccine, they went and dutifully got the shot. They'll question the mark of the beast, but they're going to go get it. They'll question the Antichrist, but they'll bow and worship to it. If they did it in the pandemic, you're likely to do it in the future. And so you need to think and pray about that you enter not into temptation, because that's a serious problem, you know, in moral character. It doesn't mean you're not saved. It just means like, oh, I better be ready. Because you'll say to yourself, when it's my Lord, I won't do that. This is the pandemic. It was different. It was hard. It wasn't, you know, and I wasn't sure and da-da-da-da-da. But what if it was over Jesus, I would definitely not do something like that. And I believe you. But and I believe you believe yourself. But I know it's about me. I don't take that for granted until I see myself doing it. And then when I see myself, like how hard it was to do it for me, I need to work on it. It's something I need to work on, because the pressure, it's going to be incredible. The pressure to receive that mark. And the beast is not going to seem like some big scary monster, even though he is. By peace shall destroy many, it says, right? And even though I think, because look at, to many people, Joe Biden does not seem like a big scary monster, right? You know, I mean, even saying that, but someone called him a wannabe dictator on Fox, and they fired the guy. That's what happens in dictatorships, okay? You call the president a wannabe dictator, how dare you? You know, it's like, how dare they? He's a fruit fly. What? I can't call him names? He's a dork. You know, what? It just doesn't make sense to me. You can't criticize the president anymore. You lose your job. I know I'm immune. Well, I'm not totally immune. YouTube might just cancel my Bible study. Go ahead, whatever. I'll have to find a new platform. You know, that's all I'll do. I'll go somewhere else. If I do get canceled, just look for me somewhere else. You know, just look at all the logical places, and I'll probably be at just one place. I'm not good at spreading things out. So, I think that's important. The mark of the beast is not going to seem, let's say, to some, he's going to seem like a dream come true. You know, the world's going to want, who is likened to the beast? Who is able to make war with him? They're going to think he's wonderful. And everyone's going to say, isn't he wonderful? You imagine if the pandemic, instead of people grumbling about having to wear masks, everyone was just saying it was wonderful to wear masks. Isn't it wonderful to wear masks? Masks are finally here. I'm so happy to have the masks. And here, please bring the vaccine. I'm so happy. I mean, some people were, right? Some people still wear masks all the time. It's you know, I feel bad. because I said I feel like they're true believers. I like don't want to. I don't know how to. It's like I don't want to bother them. Mostly, I don't want to bother them. I just wish they would find somewhere some information that would let them know that that didn't work even then, and it's not really working now. Great iron teeth. Was there any other? No, I covered all that. And I'm mostly recovering the whole same thing. That's all right. Well, we're focusing on the little horn, you notice. Is we did get to the little horn in verse 8. And we kind of went beyond. We just kind of moved out. Well, we ended the Bible study. And we had been talking about, and that's fine. Beginning at verse 9, huh? Well, this stuff actually won't require tons of comment. Do I want to go on? Yeah, the horn's going to be mentioned again. I feel like I'm not done talking about it, though. Well, let's see. 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and like I said last time, I think that is those 4 beasts we saw. That the reason we saw those 3, and not like 10 beasts, you know what I mean? Because because of the way I'm seeing this, I think the horns on the large beast are actually, well, the 3 that are plucked up are the 3 other beasts, just in a nested symbol. And what I was getting at before, I forgot to finish the thought, about the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation and the difference in the prophecy. You get one, I guess I said it, you get a different aspect. In this one, we're seeing like a really close-up shot of all right, the winds are blowing, so it's at least past Revelation 7 there, and I don't know that that's even chronological. I'm just saying that this is, we know that the servants of God have been sealed when all this prophecy is shown, the time that it's showing, I think. So that's interesting. But so it gives this aspect of this part where it plucks up the 3 things, and this is shown in symbolism. You know what I mean? You can show other events using similar symbols about similar things, but you can make it up differently each time. Just like, here's a good example of what I'm talking about, and this will help me because I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. Like in the book of Daniel, when you had not the book of Daniel, the book of Genesis, when Joseph interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, with the 7 cattle coming out, and then they devoured up then the 7 ears of grain. Now there was obviously the same thing, but you could have had 2 dreams from 2 different perspectives. It could have come up and eaten the cattle, and then it could have been like if you wanted a different set of things could show something else that was going to happen at the same time, and it might have similar symbols. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying is Revelation is filled with a lot of different things that are going on that are not all necessarily chronological, and so is Daniel, and it gives us different looks into prophecy. There's not really necessarily a way to put them all together into a chronology, so to speak. You know what I mean? I would think that would be very difficult. I'm sure people have tried. But, no, I mostly what I find it is we should know what the words are. Know what the prophecies are. If you're worried about the future, know the prophecies. That I've definitely considered that my strong point. When I first started studying, I thought history was my strong point. Now it's my weak point because it's like I studied the history very intensely and picked it up fast. Didn't understand prophecy. But then I came to understand prophecy, and I forgot a lot of things that I learned one time, long time ago. So whose garment was white as snow? It just deteriorated a little, I guess. That's all. And the hair of his head was like the pure wool. So now that matches the description we see of Christ in the book of Revelation. But here it is, the Ancient of Days. His hair was white as wool. The thing is, as someone pointed out to me, when it says Jesus is the express image of his person, it's like when you strike a coin. You know what I mean? It means like an exact copy, icon. Not an icon per se, but we also get our word icon from it. I believe that's the word. No, wait. Is that the word for that one? Scratch that. I'm not sure. But I know that it means to stamp as a coin, whatever. So that's right. So when it says he is the express image of his person, I would expect the Father and the Son to look pretty much identical. They shouldn't look like different people, even though they are distinct persons with distinct wills and distinct, and they're distinct in this sense that one can be brought before the other. And you see this also in Revelation. We see the Lamb take the book from the hand of him that sits on the throne. And that's just like when you see in the Gospel of Matthew at the baptism, Jesus is in the water. The voice comes from heaven. And then the Spirit descends in bodily shape like a dove, according to Luke. And that is a portrayal of what we call the Trinity. But you don't need that word if you can just understand. I mean, it's convenient, and if you don't use the word, people think you're anti the truth. Because the truth is not about a word we use to describe a fact of what we just observe in the scripture, the fact that God is one, but also, in some way, it's as if, and we use the word person, but you understand the Trinitarian construction? Person is like being used in a special way, not in the normal way. They actually defined it. They had to define it because we don't have a proper category for how the Father and Son in God are one. And then what is the category you put the Father and the Son into? People want to say, well, they're roles, they're this, they're that. It's none of those things. It's nothing that exists in the world in any place other than God. Like, this is how God is. So we don't have words for it. We never encountered anything in nature or in our linguistic experience that needed to be described like this until we encountered Christ. And that's why they came up with the word Trinity, and they came up with a special definition for person. I used to object to that a lot, and you can see on my website, oraclesofgod.org, you can actually see my history and see the problems I used to have with the Trinity, because I actually left the old writings which had flaws in them, and I put corrections. Because I didn't want to try to erase what had been, and I don't regret that. I'm always a little embarrassed by my past self, but whatever. My future self will be embarrassed of me now. He's just going to have to deal with that. And you know what? He gets better and better at it as time goes on. Future me gets more and more patient and tolerant and of past me, I guess. He has to, because it's like there's more of past me than there is of future me. No, actually, no, there isn't. That's wrong, right? There's more past me than there is present me. And so there's no point in fighting. You just have to accept past. You have to accept the past. There's a lot of future ahead, so you can be optimistic. There's a lot of future ahead, So, okay, his throne, the thrones were cast down. That means, I think the leader, he jumps here a bit, I feel like. Okay, I'm trying to figure out where he jumps here. Right. Because I want to see what section I can bite off for the end of the study. And I think that's about all I could talk about. This section. We'll probably end up picking up there. Well, I'd like to get this. Let's see. The fiery stream, or I say, thrones are cast down, the Ancient of Days. That's a name for God that we haven't heard yet. Well, maybe we haven't heard yet. Like it wasn't in Genesis. I don't remember where else it's ever used. Probably the Psalms. It's not a frequent title that's given to God, but it's used 7 times. Job, but that's different. Actually, it's not. I didn't look up the phrase. I looked up every time Ancient in Days ends up in the same sentence as 7 times. So Job 12:12, nope. With the Ancient is wisdom, nope. Psalm, the days of old, the years of ancient times, nope. Isaiah, antiquity is of ancient days. That's talking about a city, not God. Put on thy strength, awake as in the ancient days. Nope. It's unique to Daniel. So it's unique to Daniel. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, he uses this terminology, the Ancient of Days. Why? Why does he make up this? And I'm not necessarily making it up, but why is it here? Why Ancient of Days? Well, obviously, all the thrones are cast down, and then the Ancient of Days. This is meant to be. Everyone knows who the Ancient of Days is, who sits, whose garment is white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels a burning fire. That's God. So it's like, that's God. He wants you to know that that's God. A fiery stream came forth from before him. Thousands ministered to him. So he's watching, he watches these beasts, and all of a sudden he sees their thrones cast down. I assume the horns, because the horns are 10 kings. You know what I mean? From Revelation, I assume here it means the same thing. I remember they used to talk about this in terms of the European Union, by the way. And I wonder what that's all flown the coop. That doesn't really make sense anymore. Well, maybe it does. I don't know. A fiery stream issued and came forth before him. Thousands and thousands ministers unto him. 10,000. Well, I mean, because NATO, when I talk about America in the first beast, I'm thinking more of, it's not just America, it's NATO. As far as right now, that's the powers that are fighting. NATO is fighting the bear. That's not what the prophecy says, though. So I don't know. Things can change. What I'm saying is, I can see how situations line up in the future that will make this what happens. Like it might be us and some other couple countries are the big shots, and then Satan comes along and just crushes our military to demonstrate who's the new king of the earth, basically. He crushes the 3 biggest militaries in the world. Who else would he need to crush? Who else would he need to crush if he came? If the end of the world was now, I think the way I interpreted those things is pretty close to the way it would have to be. Because that would represent, maybe I got some of them wrong. Maybe America's the 4-headed beast. Maybe China's the lion with the eagle's wings. I don't want to be too boosted in my home team. Whatever. I don't think so, though. Because just because it doesn't seem like the right thing. The one that needs to get their comeuppance is us. They're still suffering over there. Whatever, I don't know. Okay, the fiery steam. 10,000 times 10. I like the way it's thousands minister to him, and then 10,000 times 10,000. That's 100 million, I think. But whatever, it just means a lot. It's not meant to be a count precise, but it's 10,000 times 10,000, just like a sea of people stand before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. Those are very ominous verses, aren't they? We know, and especially to me, because and us, when we read from Revelation chapter 20, the great white throne judgment, where God brings forth the books, and every man is judged according to his works. Through faith in Christ, we can avoid the white throne judgment. We will not be among the 10,000 times 10,000 standing before that fearsome white throne and what it represents. He sits on a white throne, and that means something, because God is white and pure. This is not like, don't make it racial. White, it's like, I hate when they look. It's not about melanin. It's about blank. Like, I'm not white. Look at me. Is my skin the color of this thing down here? Do I look that color? I've never met a black man either, to tell you the truth, okay? Anyways, we're talking about purity and impurity. And white is usually thought of as purity because they would bleach and clean. And it's easier to tell when things are white or dirty. Everyone knows that, right? So white symbolizes that color, which represents cleanliness and purity. It has nothing to do with race. Please don't make those associations. They're kind of annoying, disgusting, and I really get bored with that stuff because I don't believe in that. So, because we have to be able to use these things, And I could point out that a lot of the Afrocentric preachers will say that this is evidence that because his hair is woolly. It doesn't say it's woolly; it's white like wool. But okay, I'll let you guys. Hey, I don't think of him as looking like me. I don't know what he looks like. Whatever. Maybe he looks more like you than he looks like me. Whatever. I don't think he looks anything like me. I think I'm gonna look like a different type of person from God. Yes, sir. I don't need him to look like me. I mean, I don't know if you can see his skin with all the fire and blinding light and all that. It's there. I don't know, if our eyes will survive it. I don't think I'll. And in order to come into his presence, I don't think I'm going to be a human race anymore. Anyways, I'm going to have put on a new body, and so will you. So, and we'll see. Our bodies will be made like unto his glorious bodies. Our races will be made like unto his glorious race. We'll have a new race. We'll all be the same race. We'll be the sons of God. That's the way I feel about it. And as far as the way it looks, I don't know. I don't care. And, you want to think he looks like somebody you know? Okay, go ahead. I do believe he looks like the man in the shroud, but again, that didn't transmit pigmentation, okay? All right, so so we have the fiery stream, or the 10,000, the books were open, okay. That I beheld then, and this is a weird bit of passage here, isn't it? Because, like, the voice of the great words which the horn spake. Well, we know that by the time, at the white throne judgment, we know the beast and the false prophet are the first cast in, I believe, right? Yeah. No. Because it says whoever was not, they were thrown in the fire where they were thrown in. That's what it says. They were cast in the same place. So, and it iterates that they had been placed there. After the 1,000 years, after the 1,000-year kingdom of Christ. And there's some references here that also play to that, like the part about their kingdom shall be prolonged a little while. That's interesting. So he jumps. Remember, there are a lot of things revealed in Revelation that are not revealed until Revelation, like the fact of the second resurrection, the first and second resurrection. But we see it here hinted at. Thousands ministered unto him. Why aren't they getting judged? Oh, they're angels. Are they angels? Or are they us? Because we have passed from judgment to life. We do not go to the great white throne judgment. If we participate in the first resurrection, we present ourselves at the judgment seat of Christ to have him tell us, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter into the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. That is what you receive as one of his saints. That is where you go. There's the first resurrection. The second death has no power over you. That means there's no possibility for you to even appear at the white throne judgment because you've already been judged. So you do not go. You've already received your judgment and your reward. You have a millennium of work to do. And then there'll be the great white throne judgment, and you will be there ministering to God as he deals out judgment on the world. At least in a, like I said, I don't think of this as like an event per se. I mean, like there's going to be a place and it's symbolic of what I think is going to happen in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. Okay, it's not going to be a very long judgment, as far as I'm concerned. I think they'll be judged and very quickly dispatched, and they will all know and wherever, to those worthy of many stripes shall receive many stripes, and those worthy of few shall receive few. That's the way I look at it. That's what I believe. I believe God is just. And he will open the books and judge every man according to his works. And, and if you're there at that, I'm not saying there's no hope at that judgment, even though it's not a hopeful judgment. Because if God was going to show mercy to you, he'd show mercy to you before that judgment, I think. Right? If he was, why would God show mercy at that one? Well, I guess the only reason he would is if you'd say like, well, what about people who never had an opportunity to hear the gospel? And God was just not historically at that time extending the mercy of the gospel to those people. I would say, well, he could extend mercy to them if he wanted to at the white throne. Yes. I mean, I can't tell him not to, right? I mean, God's mercy is God's mercy. He gives it to who he wills. He can do it anytime he likes. I just don't think, let me put it this way. I wouldn't put money on it. I wouldn't bet my eternal soul on it either. That's another thing. Now, because usually people are worried about dead relatives or something. One time someone was like, my grandma and grandpa were wonderful, sweet people. They practiced animism. They didn't even know about Jesus. I'm like, well, I'm not going to condemn them to hell, but like they'll be judged by God at the white throne. It's like, and I would mostly be, I would say, make sure you're one of those thousands of thousands that minister to him. I don't know, it's like maybe you could intercede. I don't know if that's possible. I'm not preaching that. But if you're not there yourself, how, you can always try. God can say no, you can ask something. The apostles asked him stuff like, can we sit at your right hand and then on your left? Oh, actually, Mom, would you go ask him? And they wouldn't ask him himself. But they asked him many things themselves. And they were embarrassed, obviously, when they got the answer thrown back in their face. But if you love someone and risk it for them, well, why not? I don't know. But the thing is, every man is worthy of being condemned. We're not worthy of everlasting life. And we're not prepared for it. And if we haven't been prepared for it, whatever, I guess maybe that's what the 1,000 years is for people who still, that's what Arnold Murray thought, for people who still needed instruction. I do think there is a bit of that, but I don't think it's quite what he thought, which was, he thought everyone who had lived already would get a second chance in the millennium. It isn't a second chance. They never had a chance. Yeah, I get it. But they're getting a special chance. How about that? A special chance where the world's been lived through, but now you get a chance to hear the gospel just straight up with Jesus standing right there. Like, of course they're going to receive that. That's not the point. That's not what happens. What happens is Christ comes, he kills a lot of people, and the survivors who are not raised into bodies but who are not worthy of death will repopulate the earth, and that's who the saints are going to reign over. At the end of the 1,000 years, when that first generation has died off, because they won't be immortal, and there's just all the people around who've been reigned over by Christ for 1,000 years, Satan's going to return and tempt them, and a lot of them are going to come against Christ, and that's a whole other thing. It's only revealed in Revelation. And anyways, so that's all skipped over. And it says, and it's also given almost in like a weird order. Because of, look at it. Concerning the rest of the beasts, beheld because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain. It was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies against the Most High. All that similar to Revelation 13, all right? But that's the thing. He's going to say things, big things. And what could be bigger than I am God? Cool. Oh. I just got a, you guys probably heard that notification, didn't you? My brother told me something and I was like, oh yeah, I'm streaming. He's probably outside now. Okay. So the beast was slain, his body destroyed. Well, the words, Satan will use his mouth. I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. It was already spoken of the king of Babylon. I thought that was Nebuchadnezzar. No, maybe that's Belshazzar, whatever. It doesn't matter because it's all of them. It's what all those wicked leaders think. They think they're going to be like God. They can get away with whatever they want. And they do for a time sometimes, right? They speak great things. Like I said, and think to change times and seasons. That goes on later. We'll get to that. I want to get to the sequence here interests me, though. Because it's like, right, the judgment was set, the books were open. White throne. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even until the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. Well, okay, he backtracked slightly, and then went to where the beast was thrown into the burning flame, to the judgment. So I saw all the way to the judgment. I saw all the way till the beast was slain and he was destroyed. What I'm saying is, it's like, you have to, it cycles back and then to the moment, and back into the moment. Because the beast is slain before the white throne. So it cycles back. And as concerning the rest of the beasts, they had, and of course, the idea of a 1,000-year interval between the first and second resurrections is not revealed until the book of Revelation. Like, even Christ does not reveal that. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away. They were no longer kingdoms, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. That means that the people of the nations, like America is no longer going to be controlling the world. But America will still be, well, not just America, but America's going to be kind of in a bad shape probably. But the other 10 kingdoms, right, the 10 horns, their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. This is what I was saying. No, not for a season and a time, Paul. For a season and time. That means for a particular moment. For a season and a time means like 2 years or some sort of like weird measurement like that, like time times and half a time, or dividing of time, like that. That means something very different than a season and a time. Their lives were prolonged for a particular season, and I described that already as when the beast ascends out of the bottomless pit and to deceive the nations again. Right? That's what he does. He goes out and to deceive the nations which were in the four quarters of the earth. And they came up upon the breadth of the earth, and they encompassed the holy city. That's what's going to happen distantly in the future, 1,000 years after Christ returns. So why would they do that? Because they don't believe it. Because of disbelief. After 1,000 years, let's say Christ will be there, but I don't know if he's going to be like walking around doing things for people. He may be sitting in Jerusalem mostly for that 1,000-year period and letting us do all the work, which is how it will be possible for Satan to deceive them, I think. Or he will not go out that much. I mean, he's going to show up on day one and make a big splash, and then it's going to kind of be normal life, but Jesus is our supernatural king in Jerusalem. It'll be interesting. It's kind of weird when you think about it, because there'll be people who are regular around still. That's what I believe, That's my interpretation of the millennium. And it seems to fit the most text. Anyone who's followed me through Isaiah, it's built on a lot in Isaiah. Like I said, Daniel here confirms it very clearly. Let's say we get some well-needed support here from Daniel. Okay, I'll try to be more humble. Whenever you say everything's very clearly in this, it's like you pile on the language. It's not always so clear. But this definitely gives some a little boost to that, right? What do they mean their lives will be proved? Why? The horns of the beast are allowed to survive, even though, the mark of the beast is death. Like I said, there's some sort of remnant left over. That's pretty clear from everything. There's some kind of, and not remnant, the saved remnant. I'm talking about remnant. God doesn't come and kill everyone. And not everyone is judged to hell when he comes or anything like that. It's not like that. The white throne is later. There are people who are killed when Jesus comes. Yes, many. Many will be slain. And then they'll appear at the white throne judgment next thing, But on earth, it'll be 1,000 years before that comes about. So there was given him dominion and glory. One like the Son of Man. This is that critical verse, and I guess this is where we should begin tomorrow. One like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. Right? And came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion. Look what they give to this one. Who is this person that is other than the Ancient of Days? This is that Christ. This is that Messiah. This is the one who called himself the Son of Man. Because he knew, he used that particular name. Because that is the name by which this verse brings him into contact with God, and it reveals the nature of the one who is like the Son of Man, who is described often as, the one who, because the Ancient of Days is always like this glorious vision of God in his power. But the one like the Son of Man is God in his subdued form, in his form where he just looks like a man. Where he's not showing off all that he is. And even in that vision of the throne, he has for Daniel to be able to see him, you can never behold all of who God is, not as a human being. Just like when they show pictures of the universe, right? They'll show a camera flying through the solar system, right? And you'll go by Earth. Then a few moments later, you'll fly by, you'd have to be the size of Jupiter to experience the solar system that way. You know what I mean? You'd have to be massive. Your eyes would have to be like the spot on Jupiter and then on the pole of Jupiter or whatever to resolve that kind of that's how things work with I forgot visually. The perspective. The giving of perspective. You know what I mean? For it to look a certain way. Like really, like when you fly by the Earth, it's just like the Earth is there for days or for a long time as you slowly move away from it, and it's just turns to nothing, and then there's nothing for a really long time, and then there's something way far off. It's like, but you'd have to be traveling probably, well, whatever. Anyways, we don't see all of God. What I meant by that is, like, you can't really see the universe the way they show it. They help us visualize it with computers, because we couldn't actually experience it that way as human beings. Like, literally, some of the things they show us, like, this is what the universe looks like. Maybe if you had a head the size of a planet, yeah. But it's like they don't show what actually you would see as a person, you know, unless you got really close. Well, because it's weird, it's different. It has to do with the space between your eyes of what you're seeing, how it looks. I forgot what that's called. But anyways, it's more, but that's just a carnal example. God is like magnitudes more exotic in his nature than the mundane things we are used to dealing with, and which we call nature. God is not of the stuff that we think of as reality. We call reality. You know, all this. This is our experience. It's not necessarily an absolute form of reality. There may be a reality that is much more absolute than ours. I do consider the over reality, the ultimate reality, and God is that ultimate reality, in which all the other things that we think of as real must exist in somehow. Not in so much as in, like, God is a place that it all exists in, but it has to exist under his framework and dominion, because nothing can exist outside of his bringing it into existence and giving it space to be. So this Son of Man, you know, like the Son of God, without beginning, without ending, without father or mother. Because truly we call them father and son, but that is just an analogy for the human experience. God, and because God also did father Christ as a man. But his ultimate beginning is he has no beginning. That's why he is equal to God, because if he didn't have a beginning, he would be somewhat less than God. He would be a God of a lesser order. He could never be completely equal. I mean, God could say it, but that wouldn't. And God does do things like that, like make us morally righteous by declaring it so. But that's a judicial thing. The reality, if it's not there, then quickly it's going to have to be judged again. Because if we sin again, you know what I mean? Well, are we truly clean? Well, yeah, you are clean. It's like, you're clean what? Through the word which he has spoken. When we continue to believe his words, we will be clean. But we have to continue in them. We can't grow complacent. All right, I got to finish. I think we covered verse 13. We're actually going to start at 4 about that more. So, because this is, we'll talk about it just a little. So thanks for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, thanks. And be blessed. The Lord be with you. I don't usually do a lot of those things because I feel like it gets cheap. So have a nice day.
And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree.